The story of Charles Oliveira is one of the best you'd ever find in any sport. From the favelas of Sao Paulo to being a dominant UFC champion, Charles Oliveira has had a long and hard journey. For many reasons, he is the pound-for-pound third best fighter in the sport of MMA today.
At that time, it was Khabib time, now Charles time.
And I'd be doing y'all a disservice if I didn't discuss his untold stories, struggles, and journey to being UFC champion. He is nicknamed Du Bronx, which translates to from the Bronx. Bronx is slang for poor neighborhoods, and perhaps besides Francis Ngannou, there's hardly a fighter with a tougher upbringing than Oliveira in the UFC. Oliveira was born in a poor family in the favela of Vicente de Carvalho in the tourist town of Guarujá, Sao Paulo. His parents almost concluded him to become a football star, like the Brazilian Pelé and Neymar. However, as early as 7, Charles Oliveira became diagnosed with abnormal heart murmurs, a whooshing sound between the heartbeat. In addition, he had rheumatoid arthritis, which targeted his ankles. The illness caused him to spend the next 2 years of his life in hospital care. Aside from the enormous medical bill, there was so much emotional toil about whether he could go back to sports. Despite his health history, the young chap, though friendly, also had a flair for combat. So, at 12, he joined his friends to coach him in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Raised in poverty, Charles's modest beginnings led him to join the Brazilian workforce very early in life, assisting his mother in selling cheese salads as a child. Through this line of work, he met and made friends with a few kids who coached Jiu-Jitsu. From there, he began participating in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu at 12, triumphing in his first major title as a white belt in 2003. He continued to conquer essential competitions per season. In this short stint of BJJ competition, he won several tournaments. However, in 2007, Charles began tilting his career towards MMA. In 2007, he had his first fight at an amateur MMA tournament in Brazil called the Circuito de Vale Tudo Amador. He won by armbar. He fought in a few different leagues during his first 2 years in the mixed martial arts world, but it was not long until he moved to the big league. After establishing an early professional record of 12 wins and 0 losses, the UFC took notice of Du Bronx and signed him. Well, before he was signed by the UFC, Charles was almost scammed by several fraudulent managers. Oliveira explained how several managers tricked him into signing fake UFC contracts. I'll tell you something, you know when you've been tricked many times? I was tricked many times about contracts. Brazilian managers wanted to work with me and said, "This is the UFC contract," and things like that. So they had me sign a contract and I kept waiting like, hey, when will the fight be? But it was a lie. I wasn't signed to the UFC. This happened 2 or 3 times to me. Once Oliveira made it to the UFC, the journey had only begun. Oliveira's UFC debut came in August 2010. There, he defeated Darren Elkins via armbar submission. Oliveira remembers being called the Submission Kid, and no doubt he has lived up to that nickname. Speaking on the fight, he said, "I arrived at the UFC and had the first fight. It was on a preliminary card. There wasn't so much glamour, you know? I arrived to fight and stuff, and I wasn't under any pressure. And then I beat the guy in 37 or 38 seconds. I submitted the guy and I remember the broadcast like this, 'That's him, the Submission Kid.' Since then, the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt has become one of the most respected submission artists in the world of MMA, racking up 18 wins in his decade-long UFC run with 8 losses. Of his 30 professional wins, 18 have been achieved via submission, 8 by knockout. Oliveira has also broken multiple records, including the most submission victories in UFC history, the most Performance of the Night awards, and the highest finishes per win percentage. He is tied with Donald Cowboy Cerrone for the most finishes in the league as well. Within this win streak, Du Bronx challenged the common misconception about him that as skilled as he was, he would mentally break under pressure. Against Michael Chandler for the title, Oliveira proved his ability to be rocked and battle back from adversity. After suffering a 10-8 in the first round to Chandler, Oliveira came back in the second round, ultimately knocking out his foe. The win crowned him the lightweight champion and would be the first of his remarkable domination of the division. Oliveira made his first title defense against former UFC interim lightweight champion Dustin Poirier at UFC 269. After being knocked down in the first round, Oliveira won the bout by submitting Poirier by standing rear naked choke in the first minute of the third round. The win also earned Oliveira his 12th Performance of the Night bonus award, a new record for the company. After going through Dustin Poirier, Oliveira was set to defend his belt for the second time against Justin Gaethje at UFC 274. However, in a historic weight miss, Du Bronx came in half a pound over the championship mark despite using a modesty box. Even after taking an hour to shed the extra pound, Oliveira still came in at 155.5 pounds. There was severe controversy regarding the weight miss backstage, as several fighters came out claiming the commission's scale to be wrongly calibrated. Charles Oliveira believes the Arizona State Athletic Commission is to blame for the fiasco. Oliveira later insisted he had been on weight when he went to bed on Thursday night. The story is that I went up to my room. I made weight on the UFC scale on Thursday night. I go up to my room and didn't consume anything. No water, no food, no anything. I swear to God, in the name of my daughter, the most sacred thing in my life, I went to bed. I wake up the following day and it's a pound over. Despite the weight miss, the fight went on. However, only Gaethje could win the belt. Regardless, Oliveira was not deterred and delivered one of the most impressive wins of his career. After getting rocked a couple times in the first round, Oliveira pressured and landed a straight right that dropped Gaethje. He then proceeded to finish him with a rear naked choke. Later on, Oliveira discussed the weight miss and the impact it had on him. He recalled receiving phone calls from his family after news of him no longer being the champion spread in his home country. The Brazilian revealed that his father called him and broke down, worried about his son's legacy in the sport. He said, "Arizona's commission robbed me. They tried to mess with my head, get me down and sad. After the news broke in Brazil and the news got to my dad called me crying like a child. I told him everything would be fine, but my dad kept crying. He asked me, 'What about your legacy?' And I wanted to cry, but I couldn't." After his father, Oliveira's 5-year-old also called him, wondering if her father still had the belt. Watching his family get emotional lit a fire in him to kill Justin Gaethje when they met in the octagon. He recalled, "After that, my daughter called. She's 5 years old. 'Daddy, did they take your belt?' I said, 'No, go to Daddy's house. It's there. You can see it's there, in the same place as always.' And fuck, imagine your ex-wife has to take your daughter to your house so she will believe you. And all this happening got me fired up. It got me motivated. So I said, 'Turn that fucking music louder, bro. I'm gonna kill that guy.'" His victory over Justin Gaethje gave Charles Oliveira back his peace of mind, who is sure that he will soon regain the lightweight title, as he assures he has a higher competitive level than the rest of his opponents. Now, Oliveira is looking to regain his belt in a highly anticipated match with Khabib's protege Islam Makhachev at UFC 280 on October 22nd. This would be one of the greatest matches in the history of the UFC lightweight division. It would be the match to decide if Oliveira would indeed be crowned lightweight GOAT over Khabib Nurmagomedov. Also, it is the ultimate Sambo versus BJJ matchup we've anticipated all these years and could be a decider of the superior of the two martial arts. Whichever way it pans out, one thing that's certain is that Do Bronx has made his mark as one of the greatest of his generation. Whichever way it pans out, one thing that's certain is that Do Bronx has made his mark as one of the greatest of his generation. With UFC records for most finishes, most submission wins, most performance bonuses, the most performance of the night awards, and so on, Oliveira is an entertainer and every fighter's favorite fighter. His records would stand for a long time, and it looks like he is just getting started. Guys, thank you for watching this video. That's all for now. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell.